to be here with you guys this morning. We're going to be kind of what we do every morning. If you haven't been here before, every Sunday morning we sing some songs, we have a worship time, and then shortly after our awesome long greeting time, there's a teaching from the Bible. So that's what we're going to do today. But first, I thought I could tell you a little bit about me. I guess I'm from Southern Ohio. If you didn't know that, who's from Southern Ohio in the room? Okay, put your hand down if you're from Cincinnati. That's what I thought. Okay, thank you, thanks. Okay, I'm from real Southern Ohio, okay, where, I don't know, people start chewing tobacco in 8th grade usually, right? I love my hometown. It's different, it's a lot of fun. I've got plenty of stories about that. So, Cincinnati is Southern Ohio, I take it back, okay? You're real, you exist, but I just mean like Southern, y'all, Ohio. Yeah, that's where I grew up. Ironton, or if you're from there, Arnton, Ohio, is where I'm from. So that's something about me. Also something about me, yesterday I worked my first time move-in day. Yep, I volunteered for the whole day. I was in the bright green shirt. I have an awesome tan line that has resulted from that, so I'm real excited about that for the next couple of weeks. It was crazy. I mean, a lot of you, probably almost all of you, have experienced move-in day here at Ohio State before. It is a system, and being part of it, like being on the inside part of it, was pretty cool to see how that works out. It was fun. I saw one student, sorry if you're in the room, get moved in a professional moving van. Yep, probably from like here to the wall, maybe a little shorter than that. Yep, with three professional movers to move them into the dormitory room that they shared with another lucky student. So that was fun. Yesterday I was helping to unpack one car, and the student had some like alcohol and potentially smoking paraphernalia, smoking all kinds of things, paraphernalia, on top of their stuff. So they're like moving stuff, and I should say something, but then one of the housing administrators was coming by and helping, just happily helping unload. So she gave that to the mom. She was like, "This stays with you." And the mom looked at her son. She was like, "Smooth move, idiot." We've been here for 2 minutes and we're in trouble. So that was funny. Yeah. Overall, it was fun. I have other stories too, but you should ask me about it sometime. Anybody ever worked move-in as an owl or as a... Yeah, it's a ton of fun. So if you're still a student, you can do the owl thing in Res Life. I'd recommend it next year. It's a ton of fun. It's crazy hard work, but it was a blast. So it's Welcome Week. We had kind of this tradition going for the last couple of years that I get the honor and privilege of speaking the first Welcome Week message. If you don't, another thing about me is that my educational background is in college student development and higher education. So I just love this time of the year. I love thinking about college, whether it's first year, senior, grad school, whatever. It's just a really cool time in life, a really cool time of the year. And so this time, on the first week, I always try to think about something. What would I have liked to have known when I was coming into college while I was still in undergrad? And I started flipping through some passages, and I came upon this one in Luke 16, and when I saw it, I thought, oh, this is the one. There's something about this passage. We're going to look at a parable today in Luke 16. So if you have your Bibles and you want to follow along, you can. If you don't have one or didn't bring one, no big deal. We'll put it up on the screen too, and I'll try to stand out of the way. But we're going to look in Luke 16, and we're going to look at a parable that Jesus told. If you're unfamiliar with that concept, basically Jesus told these, a lot of times he did his teachings in the form of parables. These were like metaphors. Like stories that, you were supposed to find some things that transferred into real life. He liked to tell stories that way. And sometimes people got it, sometimes they didn't, sometimes I feel like I get it, and sometimes I don't. The one that we're going to look at today is particularly tricky. Yeah, it is. I think it's really relevant for this time of life, this season of life, but it's also kind of tricky to understand. In fact, some people refer to it as his infamous parable. So that's what I put up on the top of the bulletin. It's his infamous parable in Luke 16 because it's just a little tricky to understand. But when we really dig into what Jesus is saying in it, I think there's something so incredibly relevant to how we should really live our lives and how we should think about our lives. Okay, so I definitely think it's a passage that we should all be familiar with. But a lot of, I grew up, I never heard this taught on a Sunday morning because it's just a little weird. It's a little out there. Okay, so hope maybe some of you will never heard it, and that'd be awesome. If you have, hopefully you'll get something new out of it. But before we read it, I want to pray. Okay, so let's pray together. God, thank you again for this awesome morning. Thank you for these beautiful people. Thanks for this great community. God, so cool to come back in and see people who we've missed so much, coming back and scheduling the hangouts and all that, and getting excited for what Welcome Week brings. God, thank you for just the opportunity to be connected, to Ohio State, and for all these students for the opportunity to have an education and college is so cool. I pray, God, that you'd help us to think and reflect on your word today, what you might have for us to understand, that you'd be speaking to us in a way that only you can do. Help get me out of the way, God, and just really lift up you, lift up your truth, and what you might want us to understand through this story today. And help us to live lives that reflect it. Help us to do something with what we learned today, God, and not just walk away and check off the church box, God, but I pray that you would help us to do something, to make some kind of change or some kind of difference in our lives because of being in contact with your word. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. Yeah, amen. Thanks, Steve. Yep. That's my roommate, by the way, if you didn't know that. Yeah, I live with the Kalins right now, and that little baby is there, so he's upstairs, I'm downstairs. We have a decent separation. But I've started calling him Boo, and I love it. Little Boo. Yeah. Hey, Boo. Hey. Yeah. Anyways, just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay. Yep, we got a connection. All right, so let's read the Bible. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Okay, so we're going to look at Luke 16. I'm going to start in verse 1. We'll go through 9. I'll try to get out of your way so you can follow along with the screen if you'd like. Okay, here's what it says. Jesus also said to his disciples, a certain man heard that his household manager was wasting his estate. And he called the manager in and he said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give me a report of your administration because you can no longer serve as my manager. Now the whole household manager said to himself, what will I do now that my master is firing me as his manager? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm too proud to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I'm removed from my management position, people will welcome me into their homes. So one by one, the manager sent for each person who owed his master money. And he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He said, 900 gallons of olive oil. It's a very weird order. The manager said to him, take your contract, sit down quickly, and write down 450. Then the manager said to the other, how much do you owe? And he said, 1,000 bushels of wheat. And he said, take your contract and write out 800. So the master commended the dishonest manager because he acted cleverly. And then Jesus says, people who belong to this world are more clever in dealing with their peers than are people who belong to the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to make friends for yourself so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal homes. Okay, so you see what I'm talking about with the weird part? Yeah. So let me just break this down because it's kind of some weird terminology and it's kind of specific to that time frame. So a lot of times wealthy people in that time they'd hire someone to take care of their whole, to be like their manager. You can think about it like if there's an owner of a restaurant and they hire someone to manage the day-to-day business, okay? And basically what's happened is this manager, bad job, okay? He's squandering the resources, there's some people that owe money, he's not doing good stuff with it, and the owner finds out. So he says, hey, you're gonna turn in the whole reports, turn in everything to me because I heard you're messing up stuff, so you're fired. Okay, so give me the whole report, and then pretty soon you're gonna be out the door. So the manager thinks to himself, okay, I don't know what to do. When I lose this job, manual labor, that's not really cut out for me. I'm too proud to beg. So he makes this deal, and all these people who owe his owner money, he starts short selling it, basically, saying like, oh, you owe 1,000? How about you only pay 500, and we'll just make that out really quick. So what he's doing is he's making friends out of these debtors because he knows he's going to be fired soon, and he'll be able to be friends with these people. Okay, so we'll break down that story a little bit piece by piece. But it's kind of weird because it's really a dishonest person. He lies, he cheats, he squanders. It's not really usually a role model, but Jesus tells a story and he's like, yeah, so be like that guy. Which is just really weird. Normally it's like the Good Samaritan, the guy who helps out, the guy who's on the street. He's like, yeah, you should be like that guy who helps people. But this one's like, yeah, that cheating, lying scumbag? That's what I'm talking about, all right? Imitate that. So it seems very strange. I think that's why a lot of people stay away from this passage when they're teaching it. But there's a couple concepts in this parable that we want to look at. Okay, here's the thing about parables, and really the thing about metaphors. You guys know this anyways. The thing about a metaphor or a parable is it's not supposed to be a one-to-one direct translation to every aspect of life. Not every part of a parable is translatable in real life. If it were one-to-one, then you wouldn't even need a metaphor. You just say what you're saying. So the point of a parable, when you're looking at Jesus' parables, you're supposed to find out, okay, what are the transferable parts? What's the part that we're supposed to really take home? And what's just window dressing to make the story a good story? Who's a great storyteller? Okay, so we got to look at that. if you know anything about Jesus and his teachings, you can make a safe bet that the lying, the cheating, the squandering, the ripping people off, that's probably not the transferable. Okay, but there is something. So what's he saying? All right, so what's he really saying? All right, here's something to notice, okay? The thing you should know about the manager is that his present state was about to be changed, okay? And he realized that. He knew he had this cushy position as a manager, but he's about to lose it. He's about to get fired, and he knew that, okay? He knew that all the stuff that he had, that it was going to be gone in a short time. And so, when this happened, he might even potentially be in jail, who knows, but he knew that his present condition wasn't going to last forever, okay? And I think the point that we should take away from this, and you can think this through on your own, is that our stuff doesn't last. Okay? Our stuff doesn't last. So if you got the bulletins in the back, I think there's like a note thing. Yep, if you want to do that, our stuff won't last. Our stuff won't last. Okay? So just like the dishonest manager, here's something to realize. Okay, your resources, your money, your time, your career trajectory, your plans for your house, all that stuff, one day it won't last. Okay, honestly, a more accurate point would have been, you'll die one day. But this just didn't seem like a great welcome week point to slap on. Like, point number one, you're going to die. All right, so we're going to say our stuff won't last. But really, all those things, those parts of our life, there's a lot about our life that won't last forever. Okay, and I know that's a hard thing to think about, and we usually don't want to think about those things, but it's true. Like, the money that you build up for yourself, all that stuff, it's not going to last forever. And so, the thing about Jesus is he wasn't a particularly morbid guy, okay? It's not like he went around talking about death all the time, but he definitely didn't give teachings all the time about how you can make this life right now just awesome for you. Okay, that's not really what he talked about. Now, he did talk about how to have a very full life, but he didn't talk a lot about how to acquire possessions, how to get a promotion. That wasn't really how he spun things around, okay? In fact, he talked a lot about the next life and how this life connects to that life. That might sound weird to some of you, and I get that, but that is what he talked a lot about. For example, at one point he told his disciples that they should be storing up for themselves, they shouldn't store up their treasure on earth, because things can get corrupted and people can steal that stuff. You should store up yourself treasure in heaven, because in that time, in that place, if you put your treasure there, nothing's going to get to that. It's good to go for the long haul. At another point, one of his disciples, Peter was always trying to get ahead. Peter asked him, hey, you know how a lot of us have given up stuff? We've given up a lot of stuff to follow you. Some of us have given up the family business. What about that? And Jesus said, hey, I'm telling you what. Anybody who's left their family, given up land, given up money, to come and follow after me, they'll receive 100 times more in eternal life. So he did talk about the next life a lot, and we talked about how this life really affects that. When you think about Jesus, he did think that as followers of him, we should have eternity on our minds. Okay, that's something that we should be thinking a lot about. Here's the deal. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, when Christians talk about the next life, when Christians talk about eternity, all they're doing is just, making kind of like this fancy escapism from real life. It's just a way to get your mind off of the troubles of this world. It's just an escape mechanism. And I think that some people, they really do use it like that. And I think, I've even known some people who call themselves Christians out there who use heaven as an excuse, or a next life as an excuse to not care at all about this one. That kind of like, oh, the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket anyways, so I'm going to litter, or whatever the example might be. Okay, or there's this big problem out there, well, this stuff is going to last, so I'm not going to really care about, problems with the poor. Or I'm not going to care about orphans, because it's not like this world isn't going to last anyways. I have read the book, I know the ending, so I'm just going to focus on that. But that's really completely opposite of what Jesus talked about. In fact, he said that we should be thinking a lot about kind of life after this life. It's true, and that should affect the way that we live. I don't know, has anybody heard of C.S. Lewis? Hands, just so I know. Oh, okay, most good. I didn't have to say Chronicles of Narnia. Everyone knew. Oh, that's great. Okay, good for you. So he wrote other stuff besides Chronicles of Narnia. I got a picture of him. I tried to find that's him smoking a pipe. How legit is that, huh? Yeah, I don't advocate for tobacco use. We are tobacco-free campus, all right? Don't even try. But it does look pretty cool, right? Yeah. So he wrote this book called Mere Christianity, which is, by the way, it's a classic work. So if you haven't read it, I would recommend it. It basically is a walkthrough of, okay, what really is Christianity about? And it's meant to be read by people who might be skeptical, but honestly, if you do identify as a Christian, I think it's a great read too. It's kind of, you have to take it slow, but it's totally on your level. You can definitely read it. But there's one chapter he has about hope, and there's a quote in here that I thought was relevant. So here's something C.S. Lewis said. Okay, he said, if you read history, you'll find that the Christians who did the most for the present world were just those who thought most of the next. The apostles themselves who set on foot the conversion of the Roman Empire, the great men who built up the Middle Ages, the English evangelicals who abolished the slave trade, all left their mark on earth precisely because their minds were occupied with heaven. It is since Christians have largely ceased to think of the other world that they have become so ineffective in this. Aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you'll get neither. That's an interesting quote, isn't it? Yeah, how about that? So I thought that, I think that lines up pretty well with kind of what we're talking about, is that this manager understood that his present situation wasn't going to last and that something new was going to come. And I think that that's a good groundwork that we should have. We should acknowledge that our stuff, our money, our one future careers one day, any kind of fame or wealth we could gather up for ourselves, all that stuff won't last. I told you I'm from Southern Ohio. There's a saying down there that you can't hitch a trailer to a hearse. All right. So that's what my grandparents might have said, but it's true. Okay. You don't take stuff with you. That's just the stuff stays. Okay, so I think that's not really the main point of this parable. That's just like a setup point. It's kind of the assist, if you will, a sports term. I love sports. That's something else about me that's totally not true. But I did get that assist thing right, didn't I, Chris? Yeah, I got a thumbs up. Good. Hey, look at me. It was the basketball motion. Was that right?
That's correct.
Oh, man, I'm on fire. Okay. All right, great. So it's kind of an assist for the next point. Okay, so what is he really saying? What is it? Because here's the deal. Whether you acknowledge the fact that your stuff won't last, whether you acknowledge the fact that life as we know it won't go on forever, whether you acknowledge that or not, it's true, right? Okay, so whether you're thinking about it or not, it's true. It's not really a huge thing you can take away. You can think about it more, but it doesn't really provide an emphasis for a change in our behavior. So what is the real point? What's he really saying? Okay, so what's he really saying? Okay. So, there's a response that the shrewd manager had, the dishonest manager had, that we should look at. And it is clever and a little dishonest, but the dishonest part isn't the thing that we should take away. Okay, so the steward realizes that his time's going to change, right? He knows that he's about to get fired, things are going to change, his salary is about to get cut off. So he says to himself, okay, let me brainstorm. There's a couple thoughts here. Okay, it looks like I could, my choices are I could be digging or I could be begging. Nah, I can't do either of those. Okay, I'm not strong enough to dig. I feel that, and I'm too proud to beg. Okay, I don't know that I'm too proud to beg, but so I can't do those things. But then genius strikes. Aha! I have an idea. Okay, so I have a few sweet days left where I'm still in this management position before I get fired. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this current position to ensure myself, a well-being after I'm fired. So one thing that he was in charge of was the master's debts. So he called in the debtors, the people who owed the master money, and it was basically, he basically cut the deals in half. He was like, you owe 1,000? How about I make it 500, and if I need a favor later, I'll let you know. Okay, that was kind of how that went. Okay, so he did that with a few of those deals, and then those debtors out there, they got their debts released half off, dishonestly, but half off. And then, if he needed a favor later down the line, maybe he could do something. It's very similar to how our political system works today. But so that's kind of how he set that up to work. Okay, and then the manager comes back, the owner comes back, and he sees how he did it, and he commends him for his shrewd behavior. He's like, hey, that was pretty clever. By the way, said no boss ever. You would totally get fired. But I think Jesus is just trying to make the point that this guy's made some wise decisions while he was still in that. Okay, so what's the point? What are we supposed to take away? Should we take away the fact that we should, be dishonest about other people's debts? Probably not, because most of us aren't in the position to manage other people's debts. Here's what he's really saying. This is the main point, the whole enchilada, okay, the main course. Here it is. And I even threw in some alliteration. We should leverage the temporary for the timeless. Okay, we should leverage the temporary for the timeless. We should leverage the temporary for the timeless. Yeah, all right. Okay, so that is the main point. That's it right there. It's really as simple as that. is that while you're in this position, while you have these things that don't last, you should figure out ways to use them for things that do last. It's really as simple as that, okay? So let's think about it. What doesn't last out there? Some of the things that we mentioned already, okay? Money, power, wealth, fame, whatever, those things don't last. Okay, those are things that are going away. What does last? That's a better question, probably. All right, generally, and I'm not a theologian per se. I'm like an armchair theologian at best. When I search through scriptures, here's some things that I can generally see that last. Things that you can count on being around for the long haul. Things that matter. God and people. Okay? Generally speaking, those are two things that last. Those are your relationships and those efforts. Those are things that last. Those are things that matter. Okay? There's a reason that when someone asks Jesus, hey, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of commandments. There's like 600 commandments out there. What's the most important one? That's a tricky question. But he just fired it off really quickly. He said, you know what, the first and most important commandment, to love the Lord your God. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Love God. First commandment. Second one is like it. Not on top, but it's like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God, love other people. Okay, those are his two things. Those are things that when you invest in that lasts. Okay, those are things that matter. That's worth leveraging other things for. Okay? So wealth is temporary, but it's something that you can leverage. You may not feel wealthy because a lot of you are like, I'm a broke college student, which is true, okay, probably for most of you. But if you live in America, cozily, right now, you are in the top percentage of the wealthiest people in the world, so own it, okay? You are wealthy to a large extent. In that bigger view, in that not so small micro-American view, but in the big view, you are wealthy. You have a lot to leverage in that state. Thinking of something else is a lot of you are in the process of a college education right now. Holy cow, do you know how special that is? That's awesome. And not just any college education, but you're at a premier Research One university in the Midwest, The Ohio State University. You have that opportunity at your fingertips. That's something to leverage, okay? That's not something to squander. So work hard, don't slack off, do your homework, get a good degree, and figure out a way to use it to make an impact for God. Figure out a way to use it to make an impact for the kingdom of God. Figure out how to use it to serve other people, to lift up the broken and oppressed. Figure out how to use it to make a difference. Don't use it on yourself. Don't be thinking about how to build up the best 401k possible and get in the best neighborhood possible so you can send your kids to the best schools possible. Think about how you can use it for something that matters, something that lasts. You have an awesome gift to leverage if you're here for an education. I think that's something really, really special, okay? So, the manager recognized that he was in a position to leverage the temporary for something that lasted, okay, and he did that. So what's your position? That's a good question to think about. What positions are you in right now in life, right now? Maybe it's the kind of people that you're around. So many of us are around so many people at Ohio State. Some of us will never be around this many peers ever again in a different season. That's something that's unique, something that you can leverage. We are supposed to be making an impact in the lives of people around us if you're a believer. Okay, that's something we're supposed to do. We are supposed to be loving. We are supposed to be telling people about Christ. And if you're around people, that's something that you can leverage. So what's your position? Okay, a few things. How many of you have ever known someone that you knew would step on anybody's face to get to the top? Anybody ever know anyone like that? Yep. They're on your list of favorite people, right? Aren't they? Yeah, they're great people. Great people to work with. Yeah. I didn't work with a person like this, but I knew a person like this. I took this person's job after they left, and I applied for a job in a place where they were before that, and they had a reputation around them that said, great work. They get great work done. They do awesome, awesome work. If you are in favor to give them something that they need, they're going to love you, okay? If it doesn't matter, if you have nothing to say about whether they can advance or not, they probably won't care that much about you. If you're in their way or in competition, they'll hate you, okay? So I learned about that. I didn't apply for a job specifically because I knew that I would be working with this person that I'm thinking of, okay? So, there's people out there like that, and sometimes that's even commended out there in the world. Sometimes it is, to just be cutthroat, to be competitive, right? To leverage relationships with people to get what you want. This is a person, these are people who leverage things that are timeless, things that matter beyond. They leverage that to get things that are going to fade and die. How backwards is that? That's ridiculous, but that's a common pattern in the world today. I think it's a very common pattern, maybe in this country particularly. I don't know that much about other countries, so I can't say that comparatively. But around here, I've seen some awesome examples. In fact, some of you, out there. I've seen some awesome examples of people who leverage things that don't last, that people who kind of put their short-term needs and leverage those for further advancement for God, for helping other people. Pretty cool. I've seen teachers out there and other ones that we know leverage their summer break. The teachers love. My mom's a teacher. You don't touch her summer break, all right? You know what I'm saying? She's like, it's exhausting. I'm exhausted. It's summertime. Done. And I've seen people in here and people out that I've seen come through here use that time to go and serve in other countries, to lead trips, to lead teams. You know, there's a guy named Brian, right in among our people, not here, but came through New Life, who's a teacher, and he uses his relationships and his time. He led a team of our own people right there to Peru this summer to serve in a village there. Yeah, I've got Tara back there who's used her summer break as a teacher to go to Mexico and to spend time loving on orphans there. I've seen people, there are people in this room, and I'm not going to point them out, who I'm telling you are incredibly intelligent and could go very, very far in today's financial system, that have chosen not to go that route because they knew that they could leverage their gifts and abilities in a way that would serve people that matters. People that are sitting in this room right now. It's pretty awesome, okay? And I think where that comes from, the greatest example we have of that is Christ himself, right? So his time on earth, I mean, he leveraged everything, right? You don't see a lot of selfish decisions out of Jesus. In fact, you don't see one. You don't see one that occurred. He spent every minute he had figuring out ways to love people, to serve people, to make a difference. In fact, he leveraged his very own life and laid it down for us so that we might be reconciled back to God and have a relationship with him. Now, he totally, there's a passage in the New Testament that says that even though he had equality with God, he didn't consider that something to be grasped onto, but he willingly let it go, took the form of a person, laid down his life and died, even died a death on a cross to bring us back to God. So he leveraged everything for you. Really, really, really loves you. I was reflecting on this quote today by an author named Brennan Manning, who just recently passed. And if you haven't read something by him, I'm going to highly recommend The Ragamuffin Gospel. But he had a quote that he often said that his deepest and truest awareness of himself was that he was deeply loved by Christ and that he did nothing to deserve it. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Jesus leveraged so much for you because he loves you, right? And that's an example for how we should live that out. Okay? So, that's the main point. Okay, that's the main thing to take away, is that as believers, and honestly, even if you're not a Christian, you have to acknowledge the fact that your life isn't going to last, that money doesn't last, right? That all that stuff, the career trajectory, the things that the world's going to tell you should be working towards, it's not going to last. So, at least you got to come to the terms that you should be living your life for something probably a little bit bigger than your own selfish ambitions. Because I've never seen a tombstone listed out like the square footage of their house on it, or their end market salary, or how much they retired on. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen. So what really matters, I think, even if you're not a believer, or you're not on board with that thing, or the whole idea of an afterlife seems a little kooky to you, you got to at least be thinking, what really matters? What do you think really matters? And are you living your life for that, or are you living your life for something lesser than that? Okay, a couple things to keep in mind. Jesus finishes, he kind of gives this 1-2 punch at the end. That was 3, sorry. 1-2 punch at the end. Yeah, with a couple teachings that I think would be good. So 2 things to keep in mind. 2 things to keep in mind. All right, we're gonna look through these quick passages that really help us put this big idea into perspective. Okay, so we're gonna look at verse 10 and 11 now. So John, if you want to throw that up on the screen, thanks. He says, "Whoever is faithful with little is also faithful with much. And the one who is dishonest with little is also dishonest with much. If you haven't been faithful with worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you haven't been faithful with someone else's property, who will give you your own?" Interesting point that he makes, okay? Here's what I'm going to say about this, kind of to summarize it. Point number 1 in the 2 things is the how trumps the what, okay? The how trumps the what. Here's what I mean by that. Okay, in this passage, when Jesus is sharing this, he's saying the condition of your faithfulness is more important to God than what it is that you're being faithful with. The condition of your faithfulness is more important than the stuff that you're being faithful with. Okay, so it's not exactly about what you're leveraging, but it's how you're leveraging it. So if you don't think that you have a lot, that's okay. That's not really as much of a concern to him. There's a story in the New Testament. This isn't a story that Jesus told. It's a story that he acted out. He was standing by the temple, and at that time there was like this offering, and people would go and drop their bucks. And sometimes people would really drop their bucks. They'd be like, check for 1,000 temple dollars, whatever that was, and dropped it in, and just walked on through. Okay, and this argument's kind of happening, and then out of the corner of his eye, no one's looking at this but him. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees this old widow. Okay, and at that time, widows really had it rough. Okay, because it was a very, very male-dominated society. So if a woman lost her husband, she kind of lost her social role. Okay, so the poorest of the poor, Jesus was really big about taking care of orphans and widows, taking care of those people who didn't have a voice for themselves. He still cares about that today, by the way. But he sees this woman, and she's a widow, she's poor, she's old, and she walks by and she puts in 2 copper coins. Okay, like 2 pennies, 2 cents. Really, on an economical scale, insignificant. It's an insignificant amount of money. People probably won't even notice. To the people counting the books, if they count it or they don't count it, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be like, oh, thank gosh, we have those 2 copper coins, now we can buy this bowl or whatever. Like, there's nothing that's going to happen from this, okay? But Jesus, in his own scale, in God's economy, he looks at her and he says, hey, everybody look at this. I'm telling you, she has given more than anyone else has given. Just 2 copper coins. She gave more than anybody else because that's all she had. She gave. Okay, so it's really the heart, the intention, the quality of our leverage, not the quantity that matters. I think that's so important for us because it can feel, as a young person, I even feel this still, and I'm in a job and all that now, but for you who are in college, it might feel like you don't have a lot to leverage, a lot to offer. Number one, that's just not true. You really do have a lot. And number two, even if you feel like you don't, that's fine. Leverage the little that you have. That's not what you're leveraging. Your place in life isn't what God cares about. And if you're tempted to think, well, this message will apply to me later when I'll get a salary, that's just straight up false, okay? Because it's the condition of what you're leveraging, not the quantity of what you're leveraging that matters. Okay, so what do you have right now that you can leverage for Christ, that you can leverage to serve other people, and are you doing it? It's the what, not the how. It's the how, not the what. Thanks. Yep. Good to know you guys are listening. All right, last verse, okay? 13 says, no household servant can serve 2 masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or you will be loyal to the one and have contempt for the other. You cannot serve both God and wealth. Or some of yours might say you cannot serve both God and mammon, which is kind of this old-timey word for stuff, really, not just money, but your accumulations, your stuff. Okay. So this is a tough one to get a hold of. It's a tough one in the teachings of Christ to get a hold of, but it's definitely something he clearly communicates all the time, is that you really can't live your life for 2 different things. Okay, you really can't be chasing after stuff. You can't be chasing after your own wealth and fame and power. You can't be chasing after your own dreams and also kind of chasing after what God wants you to chase after at the same time. It doesn't work. I've been, around Welcome Week for New Life going on 8 years. So old. No sense. He's just been, it's been a long time. I've talked to a lot of students. Every year I hear at least a half a dozen, more like a dozen probably, students say this. Like, that sounds awesome. I'll say, are you looking for a church, a campus Bible center? They're like, yeah, absolutely I am. Like, oh, that's awesome. Let me say about New Life is what we're about. We really believe in community. We really lift up Christ. We want to be all about him, all about his name. Tell them some things about that, and they'll be like, this is what I'm looking for. That's great. I can't wait to get started. I'll say, good. We have a service, but really, the heart of what we're doing is in these dialogue groups that take place, during the week. This is where we really get together, where we live intentionally, where we get to know each other. It's relationships that the body of Christ is all about, not just you hearing and sitting and receiving a sermon. And I'll talk to them and that's what I'm looking for. That's awesome. I say, great. Okay, well, why don't you come out this Sunday? We've got an event. Actually, I'm probably going to spend the first month just settling into my academics. Really just getting that straight, making sure that I get everything good to go. And then after I feel, I just want to make sure I'm really comfortable here after I get going, and I'll be there. Okay, I'm not joking. I hear that not word for word, but I hear that statement, that sentiment about at least 6 times a year. When I get my stuff together, then I'll add on church. Then I'll add on Christ. Okay? How many of those students have I ever seen actually follow through? 0. Okay? Never once have I ever seen anybody do that, because the truth is, if you're just trying to balance out, I'm going to do my own thing, and then also maybe I can serve Christ on the side, that never works. Never once works. He's an all or nothing guy. It's tough. It's a tough teaching to get a hold of, but he's real serious about it. You got to follow him with your whole heart. There is no middle ground. Okay, and that's that last point. There is no middle ground. Okay? So that's just something that's true about him. So if you choose to make this life about you and what you can gain for yourself, you're not going to be able to follow Christ really at the same time. If you want to follow Christ, but you kind of have these small areas on the side that you want to hold on to, he's going to call that out eventually. Okay? He's not just one part of your life. He doesn't fit like that. He's got to be it. Okay, now I think you should manage your academics well. Okay, I do. But this is a matter of where's your heart really after? What are your priorities? Okay, so wrapping up. That's the scoop on the infamous parable of Luke 16. Stuff doesn't last. Your stuff's not going to last, so you should figure out ways to leverage the temporary for the timeless. Okay? Let me ask you a few questions that I want you to think about, write down. Maybe if you're a writer, I would encourage you to write these down. Yep. So 3 questions I want you to think about this week. Answer with somebody, talk it out. I want you to do something with these this week. I harp on this all the time, but it's true. If you just sit here and listen and walk out, I'm wasting my time, you're wasting your time. Okay, so think about these. Think about these questions, reflect on them. Here they are. Okay, 1. What is one thing in your life right now that you can be leveraging to serve God and or serve other people? What is one thing in your life right now that you can be leveraging? Right now, not 10 years from now, not when you got the job that you're looking for. Right now, that you can be leveraging to serve God and to serve other people. All right? Second one, what's one small step you can take this week towards that? And don't put it off for next month. What's something you could do this week? What's something you could do today, maybe, towards that? It's one small step you can take today towards that. And then the last one is, what are you holding on to? What are you holding on to that's keeping you from being all in? Can't serve both God and somebody else. What are you holding? Is there something that you're holding on to? Are you really able to say that there's nothing? Okay. Okay, so I'd love to talk to you about those or anything else, okay, or Southern Ohio or whatever you want to talk about. More move-in stories or this girl's tan line, anything is fine. But for now, I'm going to pray for us. We're going to wrap up, and then we're going to sing some songs to Christ and give you some time to reflect on that stuff more, okay? So pray with me. God, thank you so much for this teaching. Thank you for the fact that we know we can invest in things that last, God. That we're not doomed to just death and that's it. But that our relationship with you is for the long haul, God. And the work that we do towards your kingdom, the work that we do towards loving other people, that matters for the long haul, God. Help us to be a community that embraces that, God, that's driven by our thoughts about eternity, God, and let them be affecting our life here on earth. Thanks for these students, and I just pray that we'd have an awesome day today with all the stuff that's planned, and that everybody coming to Ohio State would feel welcomed and to find a community here in some way. And I ask this all in Jesus' name.